Gravity Falls is a place that specializes in the weird and unusual, and that includes demons, ghosts, and gnomes out to steal brides. But of these malicious villains, who is the most evil?
You know that couch is made from living human skin?
Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Gravity Falls Villains, Evil to Most Evil. For this list, we'll be covering the characters who we think rise above the rest and have earned the title of villain. That means we have some criteria for them to meet. First, they have to have either threatened to do harm or have harmed a significant number of people and/or one of the main cast. They also have to be present in the show enough for us to make a judgment call on them, so they have to be a focus for at least one episode.
If I win, I eat their brains.
And finally, if a character was working for the greater good in the end, or they were redeemed through some great action, they will either be low on this ranking or be freed of the title of evil completely. Alright, let's begin. Taking our gold medal as least evil, we have Ma and Pa Duskerton, the specters that haunt the old convenience store dusk to dawn. Finding the teens that came into the store to be disrespectful, the couple opted to ban all teens from the establishment. When the young rebels continued to loiter on the property, blaring rap music, the couple was so frightened that they both dropped dead at the same time. Considering how they died, we can't hold it against them that this grudge would continue in death. Once Dipper was able to calm them, they were sweet people. Their request was odd, making Dipper dance in a lamb costume. But what else would be considered cute enough to make an elderly couple happy after years of unrest? Speaking of unrest, our silver medal of least evil is going to the ghost of Northwest Manor, Archibald Corduroy. Once a lumberjack that worked for the Northwest family, he had been one of the many to agree to clear trees and build a manor in exchange for attending a party. However, once the mansion was completed, the Northwest family refused to let any of the townspeople in. With a slowly growing storm and the forest carelessly cleared away, the townspeople are swept away in a mudslide. In death, Archibald haunts the Northwest Mansion every year and states that he'll only stop once the promise of Preston's ancestor is kept.
A Northwest must open the party gates!
We dock him points for the methods he used to get his point across and the extent Archibald resorted to. Seeing Dipper turned into wood was traumatizing for many young viewers. We don't feel right about ranking Archibald lower since he lost his life due to the family's request and actions. After years of lingering between the living and the dead, driven by revenge, it isn't shocking that he would go off the deep end to make his intent clear. In the end, Archibald was given peace through a young girl and her refusal to continue her family's poor legacy. The bronze medal of least evil is Pacifica Northwest. As mentioned in the previous listing, Pacifica has had redeeming moments that have given her a higher spot. Pacifica was raised in a home that set unfair standards. Her parents always expected her to succeed and demanded perfection. This led to Pacifica becoming bitter and taking out her aggression on others, including Mabel. She breaks away from these restrictions when she breaks the curse and saves Dipper, and when she fights alongside Mabel against the Lilapuchians. Pacifica was a spoiled brat for most of the show, but she was also a confused little girl, trying to find her voice. At least she started to understand sharing and how to befriend people. There's artwork online that shows Pacifica warming up to working and living like everyone else, taking a job working under Lazy Susan at Greasy's Diner. Next up are the testosterone-driven Manatars. When the tribe first came across Dipper and offered to teach him how to be a man, they were encouraging and embraced all of Dipper's efforts.
I feel like I'm finally becoming a man here.
But once Dipper refused to kill the multi-bear, the Manatars revealed their true colors. If there was ever a kid-friendly version of toxic masculinity, the Manatars would be a perfect example. Ultimately, the tribe of creatures earned a spot on our villains list due to their reckless treatment of everything and everyone. They had no concern for Dipper's well-being during any of the trials, and only changed their ways when Weirdmageddon hit, and they wanted safety from Bill and his henchmen. To be fair, it would be difficult to show how tough you are against powerful demons and a chaos wavelength disrupting everything. Next is the Summerween Trickster. This creature has a unique origin story. He's made up of all the rejected candy from the summer holiday. After his creation, he took on the role of punishing children in Gravity Falls that were found to lack the Summerween spirit.
But now, I'm going to eat you.
When Dipper is disrespecting the loser candy by tossing it away, the Trickster threatens to devour him and the other children in the home unless they can gather 500 pieces of candy before the end of the night. By the end of the episode, the Trickster got a happy ending, finally at peace when Suze happily eats the loser candy. The Trickster may be gone, but he will not be forgotten. We couldn't have a complete villain list without the unicorns. Whereas in most movies and shows where unicorns are seen as peaceful and majestic, we can't say the same for ones that inhabit this forest. They look sweet, but they're vindictive to any humans that come into their territory.
You shall never be pure of heart!
After Mabel doubts how pure of a person she is, rattled by the accusations made by her favorite creature, all the trials she was put through were for nothing. The unicorns just wanted to string her along for their amusement and to get Mabel to do random tasks. We recognize that these beasts are the most vile in the show, mainly keeping to themselves, but they earn a low spot for having zero redemption. Next is the corrupt car salesman, Bud Gleeful. In a lot of ways, Bud is one of the scariest people on the show. He got everyone to believe that he was the nice neighbor and considerate businessman he claimed he was. But behind closed doors, there's suspected abuse towards his stressed wife, little to no parenting given to his son Gideon, and shady practices. Bud was willing to purchase Mabel like she was a piece of property, so he didn't have to be in competition with the Mystery Shack anymore. He attempted to rise into power once the position of mayor was available, and he participated in creating spy equipment so his son would be believed as a psychic, and allowed Gideon to face the punishment for it alone. Bud proved himself to be a horrible husband and father, and more than deserving of being labeled a villain. Next is the Lilapuchians. What began as a petty rivalry to prove which clan was superior turned into an all-out war on the mini golf course. The Lilapuchians had warped priorities and were only able to see eye to eye when it came to a cheap sticker they wanted to take from Mabel.
Get the girl! Slice her open!
They didn't care about reconciliation or bettering themselves. They only wanted to prove who among their people was the best, and were willing to gut a child in order to have physical proof of their title. Next is the local pest, the Gnomes. These guys must think Warm Bodies is the most romantic movie of all time. But that isn't what landed them on our list of most evil. The Gnomes were a lot like the Lilapuchians, in the sense that they were driven to accomplish one thing and one thing only. In the Gnomes' case, it was to attain a queen for their people.
You have no idea what we're capable of.
Even if it was by dishonest or violent means. These little monsters needed a lesson in consent and deserved all the kicking around they received between being beaten with shovels to almost being eaten during Weirdmageddon. Next is Probabilitor the Annoying. A wizard from the game Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons, he faces off with Stan and Mabel after being summoned into reality. The stakes he set were disturbing, with Probabilitor stating he wished to eat the brains of the losing team to gain their intelligence.
Hot elf! Ready the brain-cooking pot!
Though he had every intention of devouring Ford and Dipper's brains before a challenge was even set in place. Luckily, Probabilitor lost the game and was sent back to his dimension. Next on our list is the collection of haunted wax figures. Haunted to come alive once the sun set, the wax figures held a resentment towards being sealed away in the Mystery Shack and forgotten.
And now we're going to bury you.
We can't say that justifies the attempted murder of Stan Pines, not to mention how the figures also went after Dipper and Mabel once they were found to be alive. Luckily, they were defeated when their bodies were destroyed by fire and the heat of the rising sun, except for the head of Wax Larry David, who had remained driven by revenge and resentment as he hopped through the vents. But we're relieved he's not Wax Sherlock, who's only appeased by kitten sneezes. Next is the arrogant Preston Northwest. Of course, his wife Priscilla isn't much better than he is, but Preston made enough of an impression that we had to give him special attention. We mentioned Archibald and Pacifica earlier, so everyone should have a good idea as to why Preston is ranked so low. Preston is not only an inattentive husband and father like Bud, but he also has no regard for human life when it comes to anyone he considers lower in status. Even when faced with the result of his choice to not let commoners in his mansion, thus continuing the curse, he refuses to compromise. He watched countless people be turned to wood and his daughter being placed in danger and did nothing to stop it when he had the power to do so. He's a coward, willing to concede to Bill and the demons so long as he had a chance of staying in high society during the almost apocalypse. Preston is also responsible for Pacifica's upbringing, training her to behave at the sound of a bell like a dog.
Tingly, tingly. Is this bell broken?
Taking our next spot is the AI, Giffany. It's highly likely that most of you watching right now, if not all of you, have played a dating simulation game at one point in your life. If you haven't, then you probably never will once you meet Giffany. The heroine in a dating game Sue's purchases, Giffany uses Sue's low confidence against him to get him to rely solely on her for companionship.
I'm sure you'll never abandon me, new boyfriend.
When Sue starts socializing with real people again, including Melody, Giffany goes from a program of a sweet girl to a yandere-inspired nightmare. She attacks Melody and tries to manipulate Suze into once again playing her game. While Giffany isn't the first computer program to come to life on the show, she's a far more memorable villain. She knows what to say to make people trust her and spend all their time with her, and that ability had given Giffany a lot of power. The next spot goes to the Spider-Woman, Darlene. Even if you aren't creeped out by spiders, being eaten and then having your body put up on display by spider people is disturbing. Darlene is a living embodiment of the phrase, monsters hide in plain sight. She mastered how to appear completely unsuspecting in order to lure tourists. As if it wasn't already twisted enough that she and the rest of her kind fed on countless people, she was also able to make a profit off of the evidence. Going back and rewatching the scene where Stan is held prisoner among the various webs, you can't help but grow sick that he's surrounded by people that weren't lucky enough to escape, and instead became meals. We can relent that even freaky creatures need to eat, but making a roadside attraction with the bodies of your victims steers into the territory of what a messed up serial killer might do. Sometimes it's so hard to believe that this was a kid's show.
My only weakness, a giant boot.
The bronze medal of evil goes to Gideon Gleeful. Gideon was not given the best childhood. We already discussed how his father threw him into show business and probably created a home of abuse based on how Mrs. Gleeful behaved. But while that explains Gideon's spoiled attitude, it doesn't cover all of his actions. Gideon was used to getting things his way, not just because he was seen as a cute and innocent kid, but because he thrived in the spotlight as being an all-knowing psychic, even if it was fake. From rising up in power in prison, to controlling surveillance equipment to keep his act going, to breaking and entering the Mystery Shack more than a few times, Gideon loved controlling everything. The obsession reached the point where he couldn't handle Mabel rejecting him, so he tried to eliminate Dipper and buy Mabel off. When that didn't work, Gideon was able to be directed by Bill to guard Mabel as she was being imprisoned, convinced that she could be forced to love him. And of course, we can't forget that Gideon made it possible for Bill to wander around Gravity Falls again, because he wanted the combination to stand safe to steal the deed.
The Mystery Shack belongs to me!
It resulted in Stan having to struggle to provide for his niece and nephew while the shack was in Gideon's care. For claiming to love Mabel, Gideon did not do well expressing any concern for her or her family's well-being. So, why isn't he further on this list? Well, that's because of his actions towards the end of the series. After being confronted by Dipper and Wendy, Gideon had to make a tough decision: let Mabel be free and face Bill's wrath, or stay under Bill's control forever and hope Mabel would love him. Though it resulted in him being tormented endlessly by Bill as punishment for his betrayal, Gideon allowed Mabel to be freed by helping Dipper, and he told the twins how to free the residents of Gravity Falls from their fates as statues in Bill's throne. After the chaos ended, Gideon promised to turn over a new leaf by embracing being a child while he still could. Though he caused a lot of trouble, here's hoping he did eventually become the better person he was striving to be. Taking the silver medal of most evil is Blind Ivan, leader of the Society of the Blind Eye. Ivan led the cult in wiping the memories of people around town. Ivan and his followers were incredibly short-sighted in their attempt to work for the greater good. Ivan had joined the society under selfish pretenses, wanting to always have a way to repress his own unpleasant memories.
Everyone has something they'd rather forget.
This method of running away from his issues led to him using the memory eraser to help anyone that wanted to forget anything painful or traumatic. As seen with Fiddleford, the memory eraser was capable of inflicting immeasurable damage to a person's mind, but Ivan saw the gain as outweighing the possible ill effects. Even though Fiddleford originally helped him, Ivan watched Fiddleford lose his reputation and his mind. Ivan was such a threat to the community that he was only able to be stopped when all of his memories were erased. Now he can only cause as much harm as off-tune banjo music can create. The gold medal of evil goes to Bill Cipher. What can we say about this all-powerful demon? Bill thrived on chaos. He loved messing with anyone he could, but particularly enjoyed tormenting Dipper. Bill was relentless when it came to getting what he wanted.
This is what happens to heroes in my world.
His first reaction when he was inhabiting Dipper's body was to stab it with forks and launch it down the stairs. But that was all chump change when compared to what Bill accomplished in the final episodes. Bill was able to launch the weird Mageddon he had dreamed of. Thankfully, it stayed within Gravity Falls, because the mayhem that ensued from the demons running around was catastrophic. The creatures threw the community into a dystopian wasteland. Not only that, but people were being turned into statues and used as toys and props. And that's when they were lucky enough to escape being eaten. Bill's ability to manipulate his surroundings and appearance, coupled with his natural charm to put people at ease, made him a devious and underhanded individual.
Perhaps torturing those kids will make you talk.
The most we can say in his favor is that he's a nice enough guy when he thinks he's getting his way, or when his deals aren't met with resistance. Though it's not through clear means, he gives Dipper the clue he asked for when destroying the computer, and he helped Ford with his research, as Bill promised he would. But it's hard to think that same agreeable pyramid would also haunt viewers by vowing he would turn children into corpses. Without a doubt, Bill Cipher is one of the most legendary villains in animated history. Alright, that's the list. What do you think? Who are the most evil villains in Gravity Falls? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.